So, the recipe that I'm going to be making today, I'm very excited about because, especially with East Asian cuisine, not very often have I not heard of a recipe before. Just because, you know, I'm fairly interested in it. I watch a lot of vlogs. Usually I know or at least have heard about something like this. Today, we are going to be making these Japanese, essentially baked mochi sweets. Apparently they are a souvenir sweets or souvenir cookies in Kyoto, which is down south, south of Tokyo anyways. What they essentially are, I show you. They are a baked mochi. I love mochi like everyone else. It is soft, it is squishy, it is pillowy, but I don't know if I've ever baked it before, which is going to be a thing. So at the end of it, I'm going to try it out for you. I'm going to tell you the texture, I'm going to tell you the taste. So these cookies are called Yatsuhashi. Sometimes they're baked, sometimes they're not. But when they're not baked, what they do is they roll out the mochi until it's like a thin sheet, and then they might fill it or they might not fill it, and then you fold it in half, and it kind of just looks like a mochi dumpling. Thing is, I'm pretty sure everybody knows how that's going to taste already. Mochi tastes like mochi, it's soft, it's squishy, it's pounded rice flour. You know how that's gonna taste. But if you bake it, I still think I'll sort of know how it'll taste. But I've just never like baked. I've put I've grilled mochi before, but I've never baked it before. I've never turned it into, you know, like this crunchy cookie. What I did for this recipe was we're going a whole food plant-based route. What does that mean? The least possible refinement possible when it comes to ingredients. So essentially what I did was, there's two types of rice flour that goes into this. Glutinous rice flour and kind of like just like a normal kind of short grain rice flour. I either made or I substituted for brown rice flour, brown glutinous rice flour. And then in terms of the sugar, I just did it with dates. I did it with date sugar, which is just dried up dates that is pulverized so it looks like sugar. You have to play around with the water amounts a little bit afterwards, but I figured you could watch another channel where they do this like the normal way, and it would just probably taste the way that it should taste. And so, you know, like let's go for it. Let's make all of the substitutions into this cookie. I didn't mention the shape. So the reason that they are this like kind of, I thought it was like house-style-y shapes, but actually it is supposed to mimic like a traditional Japanese instrument. I read that, or it's supposed to kind of mimic like the shape of bamboo, but let's just say it's the Japanese instrument first. Okay, so let's make this. We're gonna come back right afterwards and I'm gonna try these out for you. So I have some brown rice flour. And then this is a homemade brown glutinous rice flour. So this is made with more of like a short grain type rice. So I saw some people do this and I thought it would just add like a nice nuttiness to it, but this is some roasted soybean flour. So I'll put all of the amounts down below, but I thought it would add, you know, in addition to some nice brown color, it would add kind of like a nice nuttiness to the dough, which is good. So this is date sugar. If you don't have, oh, I'm spilling it. If you don't have date sugar, you can just warm up some dates in the microwave with some water and then just kind of mash that into this. I'm not gonna add the cinnamon until the end, I think. No, let's add a little bit. Then we can add more once I knead the dough. Okay, so I have this, and now we add the water. So I have 100 mLs of water, but because we're using dates, we're using kind of whole food, everything has the bran on it, it's going to absorb a lot more water than a normal recipe. So I already added just a little bit more water to it. We'll see how this goes, because you can see it typically is supposed to look a little bit more on the batter side, but you can see that it's quite thick. I don't think it'll be a problem. Typically, you'll put this into the microwave for, you know, a minute, and then 30 seconds until this starts becoming clear and you can see that it's cooked. I typically like to just steam it because I think it's really weird to do it in the microwave. So I'll steam this for about 15 minutes and then we'll see how it looks. Okay. Oh, and then put kind of like a cover, like tin foil on it so that the condensation doesn't get into the mochi. Okay, so I have this. It actually took about 20 minutes on like medium to high steam. I had it on a pretty good steam. And I added a little bit more water to it, so I'll put all of the amounts down below, but you're gonna see it's not like your typical like mochi texture. One is because I didn't add too much water to it. I knew that we were going to bake it afterwards, so I didn't want to add too much. But two is just there's a fair amount of fiber in here. You know, there's fiber from the rice, there's fiber from the dates, right? So, but I had a taste. It is cooked. It is cooked. And so I'm going to knead it a little bit, but this just needs to cool down a bit first, and then we'll roll it out and cut it up. Even though there's no gluten in rice, there are starches, and when you pound starches, when you start kneading starches, they start getting kind of, you know, stretchy as well. So it's a good idea to kind of like work it just a little bit. Just get some water. It does get sticky, but eventually it gets stretchier, it gets nicer. So So I'm gonna go ahead and dust this just with some glutinous rice flour, but if you want to keep it kind of whole food, you can just do the brown glutinous rice flour again. We had our leftover cinnamon, which I'm not totally sure we need because it was pretty cinnamony. So you can do that. You can do more of the kanako, which was the soybean flour. You can do that too. Now we're just rolling it out thinly so that you get you can kind of cut out these rectangular shapes, and you don't want it too thin. But I think the key here is to just make sure that everything is a similar thickness, because when you bake it, that's pretty much what you want. It does get sticky, so have plenty of flour. You can always brush off the flour afterwards. brush off some of the flour. Make it smaller cookies, so. And I lost my ruler, but just small rectangle shapes. We're gonna bake it, and then afterwards, right after what you're supposed to do is then you put it onto something that has a curve. Once you bake it, it's still a little bit soft out of the oven, still pliable. You put it onto one of these sticks, yada yada, and that's what we're going to do. Do these quite quickly because I think it's going to be quite hot. Batch one. Oh. Okay. They're not too bad. But I'm ow. Okay. But we might. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So a tip here, if you have smaller cookies like I do, is I needed to find a smaller rolling pin or some kind of thing that, you know, would create the curves better, which I eventually found. But then a second thing is, if you wait until the end of the bake and you take all of them out like I do, and if you've ever made fortune cookies before, eventually the other bits do get hard and you have to go back and forth into the oven, and then some of the cookies start cracking. So I found a better way to do this is, you know, if you're going to be baking it for 15 to 20 minutes, is to take it out 3/4 of the way through and do that bend, because that way the dough is softer, it's easier to bend, and it kind of stays that way. Stick it back into the oven and then have it finish cooking that way. So tip there. Okay, so welcome back. The end is a pain because you have to shape the cookies while they're hot. So if you've ever made like homemade fortune cookies before, or any cookie where it needs to be hot for it to shape. And so what I found was that I really had to go back and forth between the oven. So I kept the oven on at quite a low temperature, and then when it would start to crack, because you can usually do like one or two pretty well and then it'll hold its shape and not crack, and then the other ones, because it starts cooling down, it'll start cracking, and then you have to stick it back into the oven. But the problem with sticking it back into the oven is the cookies also get drier, so then eventually it cracks too. So you will see here that there is a variety, there is an array of cookies here. So yeah, I had a lot of rice flour on them, so what you could do is brush it off, or take like a small light layer of water and just brush it before you bake it. Okay, so I'm going to take one that's not so pretty, but if I were to pick a pretty one, then I guess it would be this one. It would kind of have that that shape. Let us try it. God, this is so good. It's right up my alley. So you can hear it. It's crunchy, like a very crunchy cracker. Sweet, but slightly sweet. I think somebody who likes their desserts more sweet could up the amount of date sugar a little bit, but again, I worry about date sugar only because it is pulverized dates, so it is more fiber. It will attract more moisture. It's a little different, right? But I think that this is perfect. It's just lightly sweet, and it's really good. And then actually, the amount of cinnamon that we put in here was just right. It's actually not too much at all. So it's really perfect. So it's just kind of like lightly sweet and then a light hint of cinnamon. So I could totally see, you making a bunch of these Japanese kind of mochi sweets and then having, like a cup of green tea, a cup of matcha on the side and just enjoying your day. That's how I see it. So I hope you all enjoyed these cookies and my description of them, and I will see you all again next time.